Welcome to the Church Answers Podcast. My name is Tom Rayner. I'm joined by Jess Rayner, recovering from knee surgery. Will soon be walking, he hopes. This particular podcast will be released, Jess, on September 19th. So those who are watching or listening to this, I hope you're walking by then.
I will be. I'll be back. My physical therapist has already told me that, so I believe it.
Okay. What's your physician say? Same thing?
Same thing. I'm good to go. At this point, as people are listening to this, I'm walking around crutch free, so y'all can rejoice with me.
Hey, I want to, as always, thank Cheney and Associates, our sponsor. But I want to hear about what's going on with your world before I get a little bit more. What's going on with the publishing world, particularly craft book publishing?
Yeah. It's been cool to see recently. There's been a strong desire for more and more of people self-publishing their books. I have the privilege of working with lots of different pastors. I'm actually seeing more pastors and more churches begin to use publishing for discipleship. And They're actually creating their own discipleship resources that are specific to their church. And so that's been a neat trend that I'm kind of curious to see if it continues to go. So if you're a church leader out there, you never really thought about creating your own resource, the self-publishing world has made it a lot more advantageous and a lot more available with that. So yeah, that's been my recent trend with that. Thanks for asking.
Well, I want to say something else about that. It's not just the publishing world, but you provide hands-on for these authors and for these churches.
Right.
So you used to call it guided publishing. You don't anymore, but what did you mean by that?
Yeah, guided self-publishing. What I do is I help, take content that's written and turn it into a fully published book and or workbook. I'm actually working with churches that are doing more workbooks. Just finished with one church that did a baptism workbook for their church, for their kids. Cool. And so they created their own resource. The pastor wrote it and took the content, created it into a workbook, and now they distribute out to all their children and parents who are thinking about going through baptism. So it's pretty cool to see local churches begin to create their own resources, and I get to help them take the content and move it straight to publishing format.
I love it. I did want to share what's going on there. You can see all about craft book publishing, craftbookpublishing.com. So it's CRAFT, bookpublishing.com. You can see it in the show notes as well. We also want to thank Cheney and Associates. Craft Book Publishing is not our sponsor, but I did want to mention it. Cheney and Associates, the accounting firm for the church, is our sponsor, and they are also the one who provided the sponsorship for our new inaugural Church Answers research. And it's basically asking, what are the attitudinal differences about church between the unchurched and those who attend church? Fascinating. And it'll just give you a little hint. The unchurched often like church better than those who attend church. And there are a lot of different parts to that, but I can tell you a little bit more, but you can read the research. It's out, it's free. And thank you, Cheney and Associates, for providing that resource to the world. Okay, Jess, we're going to continue to look at some of the Ryan Burge data. When I say continue, we looked at it in a previous podcast that we provided this week. And last time we were looking at attendance patterns, and do conservatives really attend more frequently? The answer is yes. The Dean Kelly thesis of 1970 is still true in 2024. Yes, they do. And now we're going to just point out something. There's one thing that your church member will do that will demonstrate that he or she is one of your most committed church members. And it's almost circular reasoning. Mm-hmm. They are the ones who attend at least once a week. If they attend twice a week, 90% chance they'll stay very active. If they attend once a week, 80% chance. Now, the reason I say that is, well, isn't that, the chicken and the egg type thing, or circular reasoning, whatever you want to say? If they attend more, they're committed. If they're committed, they attend more. Here's my thesis, Jess, and I'll have you comment on it. I think church leaders, I'm talking about pastors, staff, and lay leaders, I think church leaders are minimizing attendance as a discipline, as opposed to just saying it's something that you should do, instead of it's something that God wants us to do based upon the writer of Hebrews and based upon the pattern of the whole New Testament from Acts 2 to Revelation 3. We are to be integrally involved in the local church. So the reason I said that is I think that there's some pastors out there that don't have much conviction about the frequency of attendance, and therefore they don't see it as a spiritual discipline. And I do. Now, you can challenge me if you want to, but
Yeah,
I want to hear you.
yeah. I've never actually heard church attendance as a spiritual discipline. I do hear worship as a spiritual discipline, and worship, I believe, obviously you can be doing it in an individual way, but I think we're scripturally we see it that you are to worship together. And so I see worship. So that church attendance, I guess we could debate the wording of it, but that would be my indication of a discipline is worship. I think though, the common fear of why pastors, and I've had this before, is when you push it, when you make it a high expectation. You should write a book on that, by the way. High expectation. The fear is that it's actually going to push people away. And so the idea is like, well, if I say you got to do this, and this, they're not going to commit at all. And so I'm going to lower the bar as low as possible. And if at least they can do this, then maybe they'll stay.
Yeah. Well, that's wrong. Just plain and simple.
I said it was a fear. I didn't say it was what you're supposed to do. I said it was a fear.
Expectations, rightly stated, increase the results of the church members in their faithfulness. Now, what you're talking about really is expectations wrongly stated, which turns into legalistic dictates.
Sure.
And you don't want to do that. But if we can start recovering the value of the local church scripturally, I mean, it begins in Acts 2, and everything all the way to Revelation 3 to the 7 churches is all about the local church. It's God's plan A for his mission on earth, and he didn't have a plan B. If we can start communicating that, it's kind of like, what are the two institutions of the Bible? Family and church. Who are the two primary persons that God speaks about in the family? Certainly children, but he talks about the husband and the wife. It would be like you telling Rachel at the altar as you are giving your vows, and I think I was the pastor who was mispronouncing some words during that time.
Yep.
But I'm giving you I'm giving the vows for you to recite, and then you have a timeout. And you say, "Now, Rachel, I just want to have a timeout for just a moment. I love you and I want to marry you, but I'm going to tell you I'm not going to be around a lot. I'll be with you around half the time, but I'm going to be going other places. Maybe I'll see you once a month, something like that." I think that Rachel would have become a runaway bride at that moment.
Rightfully so.
And it's because you are not expressing commitment to her. Well, who is the bride of Christ? Yes, the universal church, but manifest as the local church. And I think we've dumbed down what it means to be a part of the local church. And so we're not committed.
Right. So, then the question that follows is, well, what does that look like? How do you do that? Our church, that is a part of our membership. We lay those expectations out, those commitments out, that you attend whenever you're physically able. That's the phrase we use. You're sick, you're out of town, you can't, you have some homebound, attend if you're physically able. That's the commitment level. Now the other question I have for you is, if I'm listening to this, I'm going, all right, once a month, obviously that's you're gonna point to the Sunday morning service. But sometimes you are on vacation. You do a weekend, getaway. How do you create other opportunities for someone to attend beyond the Sunday morning? Because if you can get to that level where they're committing and attending more than once a week, sounds like you're gonna, as a pastor, you're gonna see a lot more committed people attending church.
Yeah, because the one thing that will make a person more committed is to be more committed. Yeah, I mean, that's the circular reasoning. And what do? You could give the answer that many would expect. Oh, what's the digital service? But that's not what I would say. I'd say be involved in a group, be involved in a ministry, be a faithful giver. Those things are going to affect the overall commitment of that person beyond just the Sunday morning. And you know me, Jess, I hate missing Sunday morning. You're my pastor. And I occasionally do, but I tell you why, I tell you what I'm doing. And it is rare for me to miss Sunday, not because I feel like it's legalistic. It's just because I love our church and I love Christ's church. Yeah. I want to be there.
I have found even in my church, it's not even necessarily an event or something the church puts on. I found the people that just come in the building throughout the week are the ones that are going to be way more attended. Again, you can say it's circular reasoning on this. But those people who stop in for whatever reason, even if it's not a scheduled church thing, those are my most committed people as well.
Hmm.
We have a homeschool group that meets 1 day a week, and we have several families from that homeschool group that attend our church. Not all of them do, but those families that are in the building on Tuesdays, they're in my super committed crowd as well. So when you look at it, just getting people even in the building, if you have a facility. Obviously, I know some church plants out there that don't have that. I'm just talking about those who do have a facility. Getting them in, serving, community groups, small groups, prayer, uh, just creating opportunities for people to hang out. We do church family lunches. All those increase the opportunity to have a greater commitment level, because as they are developing relationships, as they feel like this is home, and that's what we talk about. This is family. This is church family. This is home. People really start gravitating towards that, and they take ownership of it, and that increases the commitment level as well.
Well, the thesis, no, it isn't a thesis, the statistical research that Ryan Burge did, why were people attending church more or less in 2022 versus 2020 at graphsaboutreligion.com. What he showed is in 2020, as they're coming out of the pandemic, if they're attending twice a week, they're 90% likely to stay active. If they're attending once a week, they're 80% likely to stay as active. Anything under once a week, and their attendance pattern is going to deteriorate significantly. So a 3-time-a-month attender will eventually become a twice a month and then a once a month. The pattern is always negative in his research unless you're already at that committed level, which begs the question, if they're not at that committed level, how do you get them there? Well, that's a story for another podcast. Thanks for listening to the Church Answers podcast. The one factor, the committed are committed. That's circular reasoning. But if once you get them there, they are likely to stay committed. Thank you, Cheney and Associates. Thank you, Jess. And as always, thank you, listeners and viewers, for being a part of the Church Answers podcast.